started. So welcome to the webinar. This webinar is being recorded. I'm Christy Sanger, and I am co-director of the Association for Healthcare Emergency Preparedness Professionals, and we're excited to host this webinar. If you haven't figured out your audio yet, it might be too late, but here is the unmute button, and all of your audio settings are on that little arrow. I encourage you to check out our events page. The big circle is around our upcoming virtual conference. We're looking forward to that. If you are a member of AHEP or thinking about it, make sure you check out the members tab to see all of your member benefits. 2023 is going to be live. We are going to see the whites of everybody's eyes, and we look forward to do that in Scottsdale. I know many of these folks that are presenting today are already registered and planning to be with us in Scottsdale as well. So we're looking forward to some fun times in the conference and even in the evenings outside of the conference of networking. If you are somebody that loves social media, please use our hashtag to tweet about us. For those of you that don't know much about AHEP, here's a short paragraph about it. We were formed in 2014, and we work with preparedness professionals on education, networking, and strategic planning. We hope that our member benefits can help assist you in your day-to-day world of your preparedness jobs. Again, our virtual conference starts on March 1st. If you're not registered, we hope that you get an opportunity to go ahead and register. And from the bottom of our hearts, we are thankful for all of our sponsors. We are a nonprofit. AHEP is a nonprofit, and we really appreciate all of the sponsorship support that we get. And this webinar is all hosted by sponsors. Also, we have a virtual slide deck is going way faster than I can talk. We have a virtual exhibit hall. If you haven't checked that out, if you go to our web page and under exhibit and sponsor tab, if you just let your mouse hover there, there's the virtual exhibit hall tab. And once you click on that, you'll be able to see all of the sponsors that we have for our 2022 virtual conference. And also the contact information is there, and most of them have a short video about what they can offer and what they do. I hope that you'll get a chance to check that out, because I have no doubt in my mind that all of these sponsors and vendors have things that can help you do your job better. And so with that, I would like to turn this over to Anna. I'll let her introduce our first speaker.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Hansen. I'm our program coordinator here at AHEP, and we have several fantastic presentations here for you today from our Gold and Silver Conference sponsors, who are Dataminer, Paladin, Critical Insight, Jouvert, Corvette Medical, and Rave Mobile Safety. To kick us off, I will have Chris from Dataminer. If you could go ahead and share your screen. Perfect. We can see your slides, and the mic is yours.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Anna. And great to see everybody and meet everybody virtually. And I was excited about the comment earlier. Yes, I too am excited about meeting people in person now. We've just started to have in-person events that we've been attending as a company, and got more and more lined up as we get into March and April. So that'll be a lot of fun. For my part, I'm going to talk about a hopefully interesting topic to all of you, which is how healthcare cyber and physical attacks are steadily and quickly climbing, and most importantly, what can you do about it? We're going to specifically talk about how Dataminer helps organizations manage and mitigate those types of situations. My name is Chris Brosnick. I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing here at Dataminer, and been here about 2 years, so certainly seen a lot of change. It was interesting because I joined literally right as the pandemic started. So all I've ever known is this virtual type of world until now with Dataminer, but it's about to change. I wanted to give you a couple of stats that you might find interesting, but we looked it up, and last year in 2021 alone, just with our healthcare customers specifically, um, about almost 50,000 incidents per company we alerted them to that were relevant to their organization, to their locations, to the events that impacted them. And you might say, wow, that's great, but that sounds like a lot. How could any healthcare system, hospital deal with all that? If you start to break it down, that's about 130 things a day. Certainly, they're not all critical. Some things just good to know, some do have an impact. And we'll talk in a minute about what that means. More broadly, if you look across all of our healthcare clients, about 1.2 million total events that impacted all of them last year. And this is really, in a way, kind of a testament to the value and the breadth of data that we have within the Data Miner platform. And I'll show you just a second what I mean by that. Kind of the last stat here to share up front is, how are you staying in front of security incidents in your organization? And we did a webinar, and only about 22% actually had something, beyond the next 2 years. So people think about things in somewhat of a short-term lens here. And it's really important to think a little bit broader when you're considering, the overall risks to your organization and how that's going to play out. So what we do at Data Miner, and I know, we were lucky to have a former customer here that was on the call. I don't know if everybody heard that, but, at the end of the day, our value proposition is knowing first. It's real-time alerting and warning, indications of what's happening all around the world at any given point in time. And the way we do that is by bringing together now over 250,000 unique data sources. This has grown tremendously. When I joined 2 years ago, this number was 50,000 data sources. So just to give you an idea, in 2 years, we've quintupled our number of sources. Twitter is one source out of that 250,000. A lot of times people that know Data Miner from the past, we do have a special relationship with Twitter, gives us some unique capabilities, but that's one of 250,000 different sources we have. So it's a lot more than just Twitter. It's a lot more than just social media. It's IoT sensors. It's having access directly to specific blogs and news sites. It's having on the ground eyewitness reports from first responders. We're even scanning over 7,000 different EMS and 911 systems and scanner calls. So the minute a radio call goes out in just about every major city in North America, our AI picks up that call and can actually parse what's being said. Fire at the corner of 7th and Main. That gets into our system, we tag it, we send it out to our customers in that location within milliseconds, literally. So that's really the value of real-time information. And speaking of real-time information, it was interesting. We did this study last year with Forrester, just asking, roughly 400, I think it was, professionals in security in different organizations, what do you consider real-time information? And surprisingly, a very small amount actually thought of real-time as being in the last few seconds or even in the last couple of minutes. Some people even thought real-time was, over the last month or quarter, which is certainly not how we define it. So, just to be really clear, for Data Miner, we think about real-time as usually in a matter of seconds, certainly no more than a minute or two in most situations. And that's the metric at which we're measuring everything here. So we also did in the survey a little bit of a myth busting activity to see, what do companies and organizations really feel about their risk management processes and how well have they matured and adapted. And another big surprise in this first myth is the confidence that people had in their entire ecosystem. Obviously it's not just a security team. there's other components, IT for cyber, there's facilities, there's HR, a lot of players in this game that happens. And 76% said they felt they were very confident, but the reality was when you dug a little bit deeper underneath the surface, you found that almost half had no formal process for risk management. Only about a third even had a register where they were monitoring and sort of keeping track of what was happening so they could learn and improve and do better. So, the reality was the confidence didn't match exactly what the reality was. And so as you think about, kind of a standard look here at risk, prepare, monitor, respond, the bulk of the work is in preparing and monitoring, right? That's where the rubber hits the road. You got to have your plans in place when something does happen, and you have to know what is happening throughout the day at the locations and around the people that are part of your organization. When you respond, that's hopefully not to every incident, every situation. It's a smaller percentage, but that's really, really critical. And I know we have several other vendors and providers on the call today that fall into that response category. That is mission critical to make sure that you're resolving quickly and you're hopefully saving lives and saving property. One other quick point here is, clearly, as I mentioned, COVID's changed all the rules, certainly from a work from home virtual point of view. We'll probably have some hybrid form coming the rest of this year into next year, but it's going to be different. And that means, there's new ways of collaborating. There's new ways that tools like Data Miner can be leveraged to think about, how do you keep people safe wherever they are, whether they're in your facility or they're working from home or they're somewhere else out there. Second myth is access to real-time information is core. We asked these participants and they all said, yeah, that's really, really important. But, that's good to see. 82% said it's more important than ever, probably in current times with all the events that we have. But again, as I mentioned at the outset, the perception of what's real time is pretty outdated. It's not really real time in the way that we look at it. And unfortunately, it feels like it's getting more and more accelerated every single day, but the world is not getting safer. And, there's more incidents and activities, and any metrics you look at, it feels like, crime is way up. Weather events and catastrophes are way up over the last 20 years. In fact, it was kind of interesting looking back over the last 4 or 5 decades. There always seems to be a theme to the decade as far as what is the top of mind, most important thing, whether it's terrorism like after 9/11, and then it was active shooters on campus, and it's, weather related, and now it's COVID and pandemic related. These major themes change, but a lot of the underlying things don't change, and there's sort of certain things that are always there. And so the key here is, we try to help organizations prepare for that and be aware first when those things actually happen. And so I'm going to end on just a couple of really quick examples within healthcare of how Data Miner has helped. The first example here is around COVID, and it has to do with fraud. We monitor the deep and dark web, and we're able to see these illicit marketplaces that pop up where people are actually selling, vaccine cards, and they're selling even pharmaceutical counterfeit pharmaceutical supplies and so forth. And for companies that are our clients, we have a lot of big pharma as clients. We have a lot of hospital systems as clients and so forth. This really enables them to track and detect threats before they actually become bigger issues, and before a lot of times it's out in the media and it's known by the masses. So, some examples here, fraudulent transactions for COVID vaccine records. You can see some of the alerts down below here around digital vaccination records for sale for $290. vaccine certificates from Pfizer and Moderna, illicitly obtained Australian vaccination certificates. So some of those examples which were really valuable to several of our clients over the past year. Second example here, specific in Canada, but I don't know if any of you are in Canada or you remember this, but there was a cyber attack starting kind of in October into November last year. And this affected a big chunk of the healthcare system in Newfoundland and Labrador. And we were able to provide insights that this was starting to happen literally a day before it was in any of the national or local news media. So our clients there were able to start seeing information about outages, and we were detecting those and passing those along well before anywhere else was seeing it. And since it was brought up in terms of the some of the prior experience that one of our customers here had in the newsroom, I'll point out we have 650 newsroom customers. All the major news bureaus use Data Miner: CNN, Fox, BBC, ABC, NBC. They're all using us as that early trigger, but sometimes, they'll take time to research the story, to collect more information. So it's not saying, there are customers too, but when you see it on the media, there's that process often that they have to go through. So important to point that out. Last example here, and then we're going to maybe have a couple of minutes for questions. A very personal example from the healthcare space, but I just felt like this drove home for me personally how Data Miner can add value. I have a friend who works as a charge nurse at ICU unit locally in a hospital. And last summer, one night, I got this text out of the blue, and it said, "Do you know what's going on in the area?" This is the actual text on the left. And I said, "What do you mean? Why?" It was like after 9 o'clock at night. And so I started looking on my Data Miner app, and I realized there was just an alert like that minute or 2 minutes earlier that there was a deck collapse. And, it was one of those situations that's happened all over the country in different places, but there was like 30 people on a deck and it collapsed. 8 people were really seriously injured, and they started taking them to the local hospitals, both the one where my friend was and to another hospital in the area. So great example of situational awareness that he didn't have. All these people are showing up. Why in that moment? Data Miner had that information literally just a few minutes beforehand. And, certainly that would have been valuable to see and know. So thought that was, for me, kind of a good example of the value that we could provide. So with that, I'm going to leave it there, and we can open it up for questions. I don't know for sure, Anna, how you wanted to do questions or any specific way.
Yeah, at this time, I'd like to invite everyone to unmute your mic if you have a question, and feel free to ask it. Or if you prefer, you can also type it in the chat and I will read it off for everybody.
Hey, thanks, Anna. Thank you, Chris, for that presentation. So I had a question about, you said you got alerts about some of the cyber attacks coming down beforehand in Canada. How did your information, when it got to the hospitals and organizations, how did that help them prevent it from affecting them internally? Do you know what actions or steps your information was able to activate for them?
Sure. Well, I can certainly speak, generally. I don't know that I have the detail for those specific customers, but I'll give you a couple of examples usually of how it works. I'd say there's a couple of angles. Obviously, if it's a physical security situation, let's say, we give the early warning that, there's an active shooter situation nearby and you need to lock down the campus. That's pretty clear cut how that would give you a heads up. In this situation, what it really meant for some of these customers was they were onslaught with media once this news broke the next day. And so the fact that they already had like the indication about specifically the fraudulent COVID records and so forth, and that some of that had been stolen from some of those locations, some of those hospitals. That's a good example of where having that heads up, their media team and their PR team could be sort of already prepared and ready with the right talking points and what to say. When it came to like the counterfeit pharmaceuticals and those kind of things, that obviously was able to get the process started to figure out and work with law enforcement, you know, to sort out where that leak might have happened, where that information may have gotten stolen from, and who could have been involved. And then on the cyber piece, specifically, I know when we've had other organizations where there was a cyber attack and we gave an early warning, it allowed them to come up with alternate systems essentially to be able to keep business running. You know, maybe their billing system was attacked, so they need to have a backup system, and it gave them a little extra time to prepare for that. So it could be any of those, all of the above. I don't know specifically for those two examples, but gives you some idea, hopefully.
Yeah, no, thank you for the info, man.
Sure.
If anyone has any other questions for Chris at Data Miner, now's your chance to unmute and let us know. If I hear none, we will move on. Going once, going twice. Thank you very much, Chris. I really enjoyed your
And I should have
presentation.
mentioned, I left my last slide, but if you guys want to reach out, info@dataminer.com, you can send it to that email and we're happy to respond. So thanks, everybody.
And when we send out the recording of this presentation, we'll be sure to include everyone's contact information so you can reach out to any of the presenters that are on the line today. With that said, next up we have Paladin. Jeremy, if you want to share your slides.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, depending on where you are located. So thanks for taking a few minutes to learn and listen about Paladin and what we have to offer. Paladin is a medical equipment manufacturing company that specializes.
Jeremy, just real quick, are you sharing slides right now? Because we
Yes.
can't see them. Okay, we cannot see them. So.
Hang on a second. Can you see it?
There we go. Perfect.
All right. Let me get back here. Are we good?
Yeah, we're seeing the full screen on that now. Yep. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you. So Paladin's a medical equipment manufacturing company that specializes in mass fatality, decedent storage, and disaster preparedness. So my name is Jeremy May. I'm the sales manager of the disaster preparedness division. I've spent many years working in the medical supply industry as well as hospital settings. So over the years, I've worked closely with government agencies, coroner's offices, medical examiners, emergency managers, and hospital groups. So I understand the need that all of them have. The president of Paladin, David Ronson, he previously worked as an emergency manager, responded to natural disasters with FEMA, fought wildfires in California. So he understands firsthand the needs that are out there and how things operate, which gives us a lot of success for what we do. So over the last few years, mass fatality events are on a dangerous rise. We've seen mass shootings, riots, drug overdoses, flooding, natural disasters, and the current pandemic that we're in now, all driving the need for additional decedent storage. So 2 years ago, we had to learn and adapt very quickly to come up with solutions for mass fatalities on the fly. There were no proper solutions on the market to address such a large-scale mortuary surge. So some of you guys out there dealt firsthand with these kind of issues. There were huge logistical problems finding refrigerated storage and features that matched the need with the solutions. So people were bringing in trailers, but they didn't have ramps. They didn't have racks. They didn't have interior lighting. There were large door openings, which let all the cool air out. So nothing that was provided was very functional. So makeshift ramps and racks were constructed out of 2x4s, failing. So the ramps were collapsing as the workers were loading decedents into trailers, causing bodily harm. Forklifts were lifting decedents up in the trailer and literally dropping bodies on top of workers, causing bodily harm as well. Bodily fluids were contaminating everything, causing large biohazard problems. And the big thing for myself was there was no respect and dignity at this point for our loved ones that had passed away. So I'm sure we all know somebody that had passed from COVID, and these decedents were just kind of tossed around and stored however we could find space for them. So Paladin had learned very quickly that things needed to change and adapted to the need. So we now provide a turnkey, medical grade, purpose-built solution. So we manufacture our own morgue trailers. We focused on worker safety, respect and dignity for the decedents, reliability, and we provided a wide range of solutions to fit everybody's need. So we came up with a 17-foot and 24-foot bumper pull morgue trailer. These are our most popular units. We can store from 16 to 24 decedents in these. They can be moved around very easily with a 3/4 ton pickup truck and are powered with a 240 volt 50 amp service. We can also mount generators on the front of them to give you multiple options for powering. We also provide a larger unit, a 53-foot trailer that can hold up to 84 decedents properly. These are bigger in the hospital settings. They're better for longer term deployment and things like that. And we include the ramps, the racks, the trays, the interior lighting, the whole 9 yards. So nothing needs sourced outside of our equipment when it shows up. We also offer 20-foot containers that are set up for decedent storage. And then this is our newest product here. It's the Cube. It's our collapsible morgue. So we're very excited to launch this. When it's not in use, it collapses down into a small footprint, stores away easily, and is assembled in 30 minutes with 2 people with no tools required. Mainly used indoors, but can be used outdoors. Holds 12 decedents with 3 dedicated bariatric slots as well. The other nice thing, it plugs into a 120 volt 15 amp outlet. So basically the outlet that's in your guys' living room can power our solution. And I just have a quick little slide here to show how easily this is assembled. So that's our polymer racking system that goes inside of the shell. Holds up to a total of 10,000 pounds. And you can see the second slot from the bottom there is a little bit larger for the bariatric patients. Holds up to 900 pounds in each slot there. So all these panels are insulated, impervious, non-porous, so they will not retain any odor. They will not absorb any bodily fluids, and it does a good job on insulation. So we can run this thing at 110 degree outside ambient temperature and maintain a 35 degree internal temperature. And there's our small cooling unit there on the left that provides the cool air. We also understand that one size does not fit all when it comes to projects. So we offer sales of all of our equipment. We offer leasing options. We have grant assistance programs to help identify funding that's out there. Standby contracts just kind of helps agencies check a box when it comes to their mass fatality plan, and just know we have a plan in place and get assets here when we need them. And then just a slide of some questions for agencies to ask themselves. Do we have an emergency preparedness plan? I talked to agencies all across the US, and some of them don't even know what their emergency preparedness plan is. So that's a good thing to come up with or take a look at and revise as we move along. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions that anybody has.
Once again, please feel free to unmute your mic or type your question in the chat if you have a question for Paladin.
Jeremy, did I hear you say, I think I heard you say that you have kind of some just in case contractual arrangements that people can sign? Did I hear that right?
That's correct. So we call those a standby contract. So basically, each individual agency will have a little bit of a different contract depending on their need. So basically it says that we will house a trailer, a container, or whatever you need at our facility. And within 24 to 48 hours, if you need that asset, we will have it on the road and on the way to you guys. Kind of how we work around it, there's a small monthly fee for that asset to be allocated specifically to you guys, and we'll store it there. And then once it's deployed, that's when you will pay your monthly rental rate to lease the unit. When you guys are done with it, call us up, say, hey, we're done with this thing, come get it out of here. We come pull it out and then bring it back to our facility. If you still need to extend your contract, we'll kind of do the same thing. It'll be allocated to you. And then when you guys are done with it, you're done with it.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, thank you so much for that presentation. So I'm not gonna lie, I thought Paladin was an IT cyber company. And your first sentence when you said you dealt with mass fatality and mass casualty equipment stuff, I was like, oh, this is different. So very good to know. I do remember in the hospital when we were having to commandeer rooms and come up with new processes because we didn't have a morgue, and so we had to store the deceased in classrooms or storage rooms that were retrofitted for these purposes. And I remember that we didn't need a tractor trailer, we needed smaller storage units, and that's what I'm seeing here. Yes. So my question here is twofold things. How can we get this information out better to facilities? Because I never knew that these options existed when I was at the hospital. And two, how do you get the deceased onto the taller shelves? If they're internal, or you just have a rolling cot, basically.
So to answer the second part of your question first, we have a cadaver lift. It's a hydraulic foot pump lift. Okay. So you'd put the decedent on there, you'd pump it up to the level and slide the tray off into the rack. Our racks are 4 high. So I believe at the tallest point, it's roughly 6 feet tall. So it definitely goes up to that height perfectly. We are doing the best that we can with marketing, attending some trade shows, cold calling, sending emails out all over the place to try to get this information out there. I don't know the perfect answer to, get this information to everybody. If you have any ideas or, any groups that we could talk to get them the information, we can set up a webinar to talk to them, to, present different options, hospital groups. We're doing a cold call campaign right now to coroner's offices because FEMA has the Public Assistance Streamline grant out there right now that qualifies agencies 100% cost share for projects like this. All of our equipment is on the FEMA approved equipment list. So the funding, our equipment qualifies for the funding. And we've quickly identified that coroner's offices do not get hardly any funding at all. So that's why we're trying to target them and educate them that there is funding out there to get them the assets that they, so direly need.
Yeah, I know when I was at the hospital, I got a lot of cold calls, emails, and people even reaching out on LinkedIn. And the one thing no one had was, because we were in total response mode, is I needed that critical information in the first few seconds or the first couple lines. And right. those pictures did it for me. The second I saw your smaller trailers, the low angle lifts, and the portability of those things versus a tractor trailer, that's what sold me. So I think if you got some of those pictures out, that's the first thing they see, that might work better, because I could have used that.
No, I definitely appreciate that feedback. Yeah, and like I said in the very beginning, we're a turnkey solution. So we provide the racks and the trays, the interior lighting, the ramps, the power cables, the whole 9 yards. Because the last thing somebody wants to do is when equipment shows up, realize, well, oh shoot, we don't have everything we need. Now where do we source the rest of this stuff? So that's where we've taken the step ahead and provided a real turnkey solution.
Jeremy, I'm gonna stop. We're at our 15 minutes. So Anna, thank you very much.
Yes,
All right, well, thank you. My information's there on the bottom if anybody needs to contact us after. Thank you.
Thank you. And then if we do miss any questions, we will record those from the chat and make sure that it gets sent to the presenter, and we'll get that information back to you as soon as possible. But up next, we have critical insight. So Mike and Jake, I will pass the mic to you.
Hey,
And we are seeing your next slide in your notes.
We're seeing the presenter screen.
So if you click on display settings, right next to the show taskbar.
Oh, is that?
Over to the right, just a little bit. Yep, click there.
There we go.
And then swap. Perfect.
Yeah, I'd hate for you to see my next slide and know what was coming. Oh my God.
And hey, I
ruined
do
the whole
wanna,
thing.
Right. Hey, Tobias, you were right, by the way. There is, in fact, a cybersecurity company with the same name.
That's right.
But I didn't want you to feel like, holy cow, we're going to go this whole time without hearing from a cybersecurity company. So we are here for you, man. We are here specifically for you. So my name is Jake Milstein. I do a lot of healthcare speaking, and I'm going to talk for a second about the American Hospital Association Rural Conference last week. Before I do, Mike, you want to tell them who you are?
Sure. Mike Hamilton, and I've got about 30 years in information security, long before the cartoon word cyber was invented. And I've got a bit of experience in emergency management as I was the chief of information security for the city of Seattle for about 8 years. And was called to the EOC every time there was 2 inches of snow, resulting in complete paralysis of the city. So I have got a little bit of context here.
And so last week I went to, and Mike, next slide, went to the American Hospital Association conference. And one of the reasons that I went is, so I don't know if you all know a guy named John Ricci. So American Hospital Association goes out, says, hey, we need a cybersecurity expert. Hospitals are getting knocked down with ransomware. We need a real person to handle this. They hire a guy named John Ricci, former FBI, 30 years in the FBI. And John says, well, this is crazy. There are 1,200 cybersecurity companies, one of them named Paladin. And we and how could hospitals, how could healthcare organizations possibly choose which one? So John goes out, interviews a bunch of cybersecurity companies, and decides on the ones that the AHA is going to say, these are our preferred providers. And Keith puts in the chat, John Ricci will also be speaking at the virtual conference this year. He's amazing. Go to that speech. So John picked us as the first, and he picked us because of our depth of knowledge in healthcare, the number of healthcare clients we have, the investment we have from healthcare, and he looked at our financials and all that, and and John loves us and we love John. He invited me last week to speak to the AHA Rural Conference in Phoenix. 2 stories from there that I think are really important today. One, CEO of a hospital came up and told me they got hit with ransomware about 1.5 years ago. They were not prepared for it. Their preparedness plan, they didn't really pay attention to. They had one that had been on the shelf, but because they had so many workers at home, they hadn't updated it. They got their computers and everything back online 3.5 months later. And so they were on paper for 3.5 months. Impacted patients, impacted billing, and continues to impact the hospital to this day. And so one of our goals is to help people avoid that And if something bad happens, react appropriately. Another hospital that came to present, they got also hit. They're in Oregon, got hit with ransomware, took down the system, and they had a plan. Actually, this was in Michigan. They had a plan. They had a good plan. They hadn't practiced it recently, and they didn't follow the plan. And so what happened is they had a bunch of people doing the same things, and that slowed down their response. And they said they probably lost a week or two in doing that. And so I want to start with those two things that have happened in the last year. Mike, next slide.
Okay, so just in case you thought Jake's story there was a one-off, it's not. This is going on every day. Hospitals have been targeted. There are a couple of gangs, notably coming out of Russia and Eastern Europe, that specifically go after hospitals. And the reason is because they're super critical. Our company preferentially works with organizations that we consider to be critical at the scale that we live our lives. So that's a lot of local government. That's water purification, waste treatment. That's making sure the fire department gets to your house on time because they run the communication system. But it's also the health sector, writ large, the health sector. We just published our twice yearly healthcare data breach report. And a lot of people, all of this cyber language, it just confuses everybody. So yes, we're talking about hospitals that keep getting shut down because they are being extorted. Okay, Jake keeps saying ransomware. If you don't know what that is, it's software that hits your network, looks around for the good stuff, steals a bunch of records first, encrypts everything so that you can't operate. Okay, well, that's great definition. If you want to encapsulate all the cyber stuff, there's three things you're trying to avoid here. Number one is unauthorized disclosure of protected records, the dreaded data breach. Number two, theft and extortion, theft through something called business email compromise that you may or may not have experienced. Hey, somebody's trying to get us to change a bank routing number, etc. And the third one is disruption. So, you don't want to lose records. You don't want to have money stolen or be extorted, and you don't want your network just knocked down. Well, right now, the geopolitical tensions that are happening over on the other side of the world are starting to get people real nervous. And the FBI and CISA, the Department of Homeland Security, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, are directly warning hospitals. This could be coming our way. So strategically, if another country wanted to really give us something else to worry about other than what's happening over there and what our troop movements are and things like this, they start knocking down hospitals and they make it look like it's organized crime. Well, it's not. So the warnings are out all over the place. Emergency management. So, I've been through the National Incident Management System training. And like I said, we practiced for earthquakes, asteroid strike, you name it. And snowstorm was the only thing that we ever activated the EOC for. But emergency management in health has now got to take into account all those other things that we worry about all the time, including pandemics, but now this cyber attack business. So incident response, what we do to put things back together when this stuff goes down, and emergency management have to converge in the health sector during one of these events, right? We're trying to take care of people. The mission of the hospital, the health sector, is patient care. Patient care is being affected by these events. We've all probably read about, there have been some deaths attributed to hospitals getting knocked down. And there are actually some of these criminal gangs that when they find out that their business model of ransomware as a service has affected a hospital, they give a hospital a free decryption key to get them back. Well, they still got knocked down for a while. So it's important that our emergency planning take this kind of thing into consideration. So again, records disclosure, theft and extortion, and service disruption. And that disruption may or may not be for the purpose of extortion. It may just be to knock you down. So what happens? Well, you lose records. Okay, you're going to be in the HIPAA wall of shame. You're going to end up in our twice yearly report. Theft through business email compromise, you're going to lose money. those are bad. You know, there's additional regulatory action that could come, fines, there's brand damage. Lately, there have even been class action suits. So in particular, what's an example? Like Scripps Health. Scripps Health did a phenomenally bad job of communicating during an event where their ability to operate was taken down. And now patients are suing in a class action. Okay, well, you know, that's something to worry about. But these operational disruptions can be through a denial of service where somebody is just throwing so much data at your internet perimeter that you can't move anything back and forth across that point. Or it can be this ransomware business where your entire network is encrypted. You are not going to be able to operate. There will be no electronic health records. There will be no ability to bill. Your phones may be down. Patients are going to have to be redirected. All the planning needs to take these things into consideration for a cyber attack. So best advice we can give anybody is this: to prepare for this, monitor your network. Preventive controls are going to fail. Your antivirus and your email security and your firewalls, they get sliced through really routinely. 75% of these events start with somebody giving away a password because they get fooled into something. And your firewall is not going to do anything for users that want to go trip over things on the internet. If you monitor your network, you will be able to see the signal that your preventive controls have failed and put out that little fire before it gets big, so that you don't have to start redirecting patients. Monitor your network is probably the best advice for preparation, but you're going to need emergency data procedures. Buy a bunch of number 2 pencils, have them handy. Backup communications. What are you going to do if your phones are down? Shut down and start up. So you have to bring computers back up in the right order or things don't work. Incident response and communication plan. Again, Scripps, horrible job at communicating and resulting in a class action. The ability to move cryptocurrency, because if you're a hospital and you're being extorted, the fastest way to get back on your feet is maybe to pay these people off. So your ability to move cryptocurrency is good planning advice. And then these interlocal agreements for patient redirection. If all that is worked out beforehand, you're going to land in a better place. So there's a little bit of emergency management meets cybersecurity. Jake, what do you want to say about this?
And so, you know, so these are our services. So on the left are the things Mike talked about. So some cybersecurity companies just do sort of one thing. We do the whole circle. We help with incident preparedness. We help build response planning. We help with, you know, how are you going to rapidly quarantine what you have? We help you with tabletop exercises. The bottom arrow down there, the active incident response. One of the things we're finding is the number of hospitals and organizations saying, you know what, something's going to happen. We need somebody on retainers because, you know, when the kitchen's on fire is not when you want to be looking for a fire extinguisher. And then obviously we can help if you just call the 800 number, we'll have anybody, but you know, that IR retainer. And then in the middle, the 24/7 threat detection and investigation. That's making sure that you see the bad actor as soon as they get in. The average in the United States is 200 days before somebody sees a bad actor in their system. We help you get them out in 2 hours or less. And then on the right is our consulting side, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. It's really the stuff on the left. But really what we provide that's different than others is, and why the American Hospital Association likes us, is we do sort of the whole you know, gamut of cybersecurity services. Mike, next slide. And this is what I mentioned about American Hospital Association. I like to put their logo up because I run marketing. Next slide. And that's how you get in touch with us. So, questions?
Hearing no
Jake,
questions.
this is not a question.
Oh, Christy.
Oh, sorry, Anna.
Nope, go ahead.
Not a question, but just wanted, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
we can hear you.
I just wanted to let everybody know and remind people that John Ricci is going to be presenting at the virtual conference that is coming up in March. And so he will be presenting on March 3rd at 11 a.m. So if you like this topic and want to hear more, please tune into that.
Thank you, Christy. Hearing no questions for Jake and Mike, I think we will move on. Just a reminder, if you do have a question, you can still pop it into the chat and we will still forward it on to them. But moving on, we'll have Juvere, and presenting for them is Akshay Birla. I hope I said your name correctly. I'm so sorry if I didn't, but I will pass the mic to you now.
Perfect, thank you. So really excited to be here. Is audio okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. So it's been a couple years since we've been back at AHAP. So very excited to be here today with everybody. And I wanted to first, on behalf of my team at Jabari, say thank you. My name is Akshay Birla. I serve as our Chief Marketing Officer, but until a few months ago, I was actually leading our public health and healthcare team, spanning so much of our pandemic response. And so from my personal experience in working with a lot of your colleagues, I've been scrolling through and looking at the names. I've worked with a lot of your colleagues and your partners at the state or local level. And just been so impressed with the work that we've done. And so on behalf of our teams, whether you know us as Jabari or Corvina or Knowledge Center or Life Process or Nocera, thank you. You are the unsung protectors of our communities, and it is absolutely inspiring to work with you and serve the communities that you serve. For those of you who don't know us or know us only from our solutions like Webeoc or EM Resource, Jabari's mission is to strengthen and optimize information sharing and visualization to empower our communities, preparedness and response professionals as we protect people, property, and brands. And what that means for us as we serve our diverse stakeholder, really three different things. First, we build software that helps you prepare, connect, and respond. Second, we provide services that help you support the use of the software, especially as folks need to configure it to meet your very complicated or nuanced workflows. And then finally, we keep in mind community at the core of what we do. So our platforms truly make our communities more resilient by making it easier for you to share data and connect with each other when the time is appropriate to do so. So just to give you a sense of the Jabari community, we welcomed clients who use Live Process and Corvina in the last 18 months. What that means for us is 150 more hospitals at a hospital level relationship than we had 18 months ago. New partnerships with state levels at 5 different states. Utah's starting a statewide implementation, New York, New Jersey. DC has been pretty new to us. So with that, we cover approximately 65 million new constituents. Because of the work that we do for hospitals, in service of that, we established direct partnerships with HHS's Protect Teletracking program, as well as the NHSN program, so that status updates from hospitals could be sent directly without having duplicative data entry. What that means is if you've used EM Resource, for example, we've almost doubled the number of users, increased the number of facilities that are using it by 25%, and a 400% increase in baseline usage. And so what that means, what that translates to on a daily or monthly basis is that hospitals are sharing about 1 million status updates with each other and with different partners about helping create situational awareness every single month. So that's 1 million updates every month going through EM Resource alone. And because a lot of you probably have some sort of tie-in into some of the things that we're doing, wanted to make sure that we did a combination of an update on things that you probably would or your colleagues will see coming down the pike, and also things that we're really excited about launching. So in the position that we have in serving this market, we take very seriously our responsibility of investing in the future as we think through what it takes to more efficiently communicate and connect the communities in times of crisis. And so briefly talking about some of the things that are new for us and new as we share this. First, as the pandemic has waxed and waned, we've seen that there's a recurring desire for healthcare partners to lean in and bounce forward. So using lessons that you've learned or deficiencies that you've identified, there's an ongoing need to systemically assess hazards, threats, and potential business impacts. And with our capabilities and the perspective that we've gained over 25 years of supporting the response phase, we're now enabling institutions to prioritize plans and identify response objectives better in advance, which supports both visualizing and planning capacity from a top-down approach, and then also gaining insights on threats, risks, and liabilities from a bottom-up approach. So our goal is to continue to be the one-stop shop technology partner for planning, response, and recovery. And with these business continuity and solutions, our clients are standardizing the functions, services, and resources necessary to operate. So ranking restoration priorities, managing the continual improvement process for plans, and automating the dissemination of new plan versions, new checklists, seamlessly activating all of that together when the moment strikes. If you're in any of the states that currently use EM resource, and there are only a handful that don't, this is one thing that I'm super excited to share. It's been a few months in the making and based on a lot of client feedback. We are introducing EM Resource 4.0 to the market in just a couple months. And what this will have is a lot of user improvements, both from an user interface and navigation, as well as feature updates that will better able to support user profile, notifications, user management workflows, with the objective of making it easy to use the entire application and more efficient to do so. One thing that is very cool that's coming up is for states that use EM Resource already, going into the end of this year, next year, we'll be looking at how we can make it so that health systems have their private view of EM Resource and also the view of EM Resource that they share with the state, so that they can keep private information for internal system-wide situational awareness, and then the set of information that is shared with coalitions or states or rolled up to HHS. And finally, if you haven't been a part of this already, there are a few states that have chosen to deploy statewide API. And what that means is those updates that you need to send to HHS on a daily basis, most of them or a lot of them are automated through API. And so from a state or coalition partner perspective, they're getting updates every 15 minutes as opposed to every day because someone's keying data in. And when something needs to be flipped and sort of situational awareness is important for a time of crisis, that information is readily available. And certainly been one of the truly transformational things that has come out of COVID in the data velocity that's changing. And then one additional thing that has been super cool for us is the launching of Webeoc 9 for healthcare. So if you've used in the EM profession Webeoc sort of in the state or local EM capacity, this is different because it takes some of those boards, which are our data and workflow processes, and configures them in a way that incorporates best practices from healthcare emergency management and provides something that can be used out of the box very easily in health systems. And so these are built so that you've got mobile responsive solutions, they have maps embedded in the workflows, and still using the robust information architecture of Webeoc, but with information that is appropriately shareable for an executive who may want something that's more high-level dashboards to folks that need to request resources that's more granular on the ground. So trying to really provide the right data at the right time, right depth of data as we grow into supporting more and more of the healthcare system use cases. And finally, a broad initiative across our firm has been just looking at how we do alerting and notifications. And as we think about them, they're really three different areas that we can focus this on. One is on collaboration and accountability. So if you're using EICS or live process, something for that. Second, for situational awareness. So thinking about this in terms of sharing data in a structured format, but also making sure that it stays in a way that you can then use for analytics later on to teach machines to do some AI and proactive predictive work. And then finally, mass communication. So we've done a lot of work for statewide HON alerts, and we've done a lot of work on workflow and sort of bridging that gap in the middle for a health system mass communication platform. Those are three broad themes that I've been very, very excited about this year. And so if you haven't already, those are things to tap into. And then finally, for folks that we've worked with before, you know, Jabari Exchange for us is a really important concept and an idea. So in creating a mechanism for you to share information with each other, either on an ongoing basis or specific to an incident, and then being able to connect all that information and truly develop situational awareness, not just at a health system level, but also at a coalition level or a state level to different degrees of information as is needed based on the time. So we're putting a lot of work into this, and one area where it's already started to bear some fruit is where you've got state instances of WebEOC and local instances of WebEOC, and how we're able to eliminate some of the duplicative work by making it so that information from the county is able to go into the state without someone having to do duplicative work. So that's an area and the kinds of use cases that we're actually very excited to partner with clients and users on. So if you've got something that sort of fits that mold, let us know, and I'll make sure we put someone on working with you on that. And then I know probably up on time, so wanted to end with just saying thank you. A lot of names over here in organizations that we actually get to work with, and as I talk to my friends who aren't in the profession, who don't do public health and don't do emergency management, I get to describe the work that we do as the work of real superheroes. So really grateful to be here, and love the opportunity to come back to AHAP as a company and say thank you for all the work that you do.
Thank you so much for being here today, Akshay. We look forward to working with Jabari in the future as well. I'll give everyone just a second if you want to unmute your mic to ask a question, but I see none in the chat. Going once, going twice. And next up, we will have Corvent Medical. So Todd, I think I'll pass the mic over to you. Or Jim is going to share first. Sorry, Jim, the mic's yours.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for all the presentations previously. I've learned a lot about emergency management in different sectors, from cybersecurity to different ways of handling threats or shortages or adverse events that COVID brought to us all, but things have been ongoing for years. So I think this is a great organization. I've learned a lot just listening to you all. So my name is Jim Jake. I am the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Corvent Medical. We are a startup ventilator company based out of Fargo, North Dakota. Beautiful, sunny Fargo, North Dakota, nice and warm. So my team, On this call is Randy Williams. He's the Global Vice President of Strategic Corporate Affairs. We also have our Area Vice President, Todd Burke, and Chandler Wu, who is our Product Manager. As a team, we work very closely with different IDNs, so independent delivery networks, hospitals throughout the country, as well as emergency preparedness organizations with departments of health and the government in helping them with ventilator needs. If you all remember, during the early part of the pandemic, ventilators became a high priority product for many organizations. So we have a mission statement. And our mission statement is to modernize, simplify, and automate pulmonary critical care medicine products and services through a disruptive partner network. Now, what does that mean? Well, back in March of 2020, the US got hit hard by COVID. It had found its way here, and the supply chain found many deficits with different products, such as PPE and ventilators. So the Strategic National Stockpile, which was designed to supply the country with ventilators should a disaster happen, it broke down, and for a couple reasons. The ventilators had not been maintained or serviced, so when they were delivered to the hospitals, they didn't work, or they were not the proper type of ventilator that needed to be used. So the Department of Defense issued a challenge to US companies to come up with a simple, low-cost design ventilator that could be deployed rapidly and simply save lives. Our company was one of those submissions. There was 172 submissions at the time. There was only 5 companies picked. And we delivered our first generation ventilator. Now at the time, it was a very simple design, what they call a bagger, right? It's a bag squeezer type of ventilator that could just keep a person alive. We pulled back on that and said, the world needs something different. The world needs a ventilator that, like all ventilators, that could save a life, sustain life, and wean, you hear the term wean a patient off a ventilator, because none of us want to go on one, but if we do, we want to get off of it. And you have to have the right type of ventilator to do that. But there were many other things associated with ventilators that people found out throughout the pandemic that need a redesign. So we went back to the drawing board, redesigned our ventilator, submitted it for emergency use authorization, which, let's be honest, none of us knew what an EUA was prior to COVID. And now we're all familiar with it, from vaccines to different devices that the FDA issues EUA, emergency use authorization for. So we commercialized our company in January of 2021. In March of 2021, we received what they call the Critical Care Ventilation Certificate. So that certifies us as an ICU quality ventilator, which goes up against ventilator companies that have been in existence for decades. And this is a company that had only been around for maybe a year. So to get that ISO certificate was a big deal. We got our CE mark, and for using it in a med device, CE mark allows us to market our product overseas. Typically, in all the companies I've been a part of, CE mark takes well over a year to a year and a half. We were able to get that in 9 months. And now we've made our 510K, our FDA registration for full FDA certification that we'll have in a couple months. We're also on a GPO contract. So a GPO contract means that hospitals belong to a group purchasing organization. This typically takes well over a year to 2 years to get on a contract like this. We were able to do it in less than a year. And then we decided to move our company to Fargo and are starting, manufacturing there. We are a US made, designed and manufactured company. So everything we do is made in the US. So, we base our model on 3 pillars, right? So there's technology, there's logistics, and there's education. So when you look at emergency preparedness, what do you need? You need technology that works and is reliable. You need logistical scenarios that you're able to solve. You know, in emergency preparedness, logistics is a big deal, as we all know, right? Captain Obvious on that one. And then education. It has to be easy to learn. It has to be easy to be deployed, and it's got to be repeatable. So we came up with a simple yet sophisticated design that met the ICU standard for ventilators at a lower cost of ownership. From a technology standpoint, if you're not familiar with ventilators, typically with a ventilator company, they have their own proprietary disposables, which means you could only use theirs. Now, what did we learn during the pandemic? Back orders, supply chain issues. If the circuits and the filters are on back order, you have a useless ventilator. So we source all of our products in the US, we make them here. But if a hospital has a contract with another manufacturer, they could use that. They could use those circuits and filters and those disposables. So it doesn't limit your use with the ventilator. We have a simple and intuitive workflow. So ventilators are very sophisticated machines that require weeks to months of training to become proficient on it. Ours does not, and I'll show you why. And it's a small, lightweight design for mobility. Typical ventilator runs from 50 pounds to well over 100 pounds. They're very hard to move. They're very hard to store. Ours is 12 pounds. So it's easy to store. You can put it in a warehouse. It could sit on the shelf for years, never get used, not have to be maintained or serviced, and it'll work right out of the box. So from a logistical standpoint, it's very important that we do not require service or maintenance. That's a big deal when it comes to preparedness. We're all dealing with equipment. It's like a car, right? If you don't take care of your car, it's not going to work. So we externalize the components that require service and built them with parts that don't have what they call limited lifespan. It's kind of like your cell phone that dies after 2 years because the parts inside of it start to degrade. Ours don't. Low cost of ownership. Our ventilator is a third of the total cost of ownership for a ventilator. Because of the fact that we don't have any service or maintenance contracts, which is unheard of, and the fact that we're a third of the cost is advantageous in this world right now when you're looking at, one, emergency preparedness budgets for hospitals that need backup ventilators or ventilators that can support patients in ICUs once they've hit capacity. And it's designed for day-to-day use. It's not just a storable ventilator that is used for disasters. What we found was hospitals, like rural hospitals, smaller hospitals that have emergency rooms that require a ventilator, or they have smaller ICUs, they're using this for day-to-day use because it works and it's an ICU ventilator. And when they're not using it, they could store it because it's easy to clean, requires no maintenance. And from an education standpoint, people need to learn how to use it. So we came up with a system for training that could be in person, virtual. We have it online. We're able to train a healthcare professional in less than an hour. So we've made it simple, efficient. I don't like the word fast, or fast means that, it's good when you're racing, but when you're dealing with something like this, you need to be efficient. And we've created an efficient training module. So when you're looking at, just think about a manual when something's not working. You have to leaf through pages and pages to find out what to do next. So we took all of that and put the instructions right on top of the ventilator. So let's just say it's 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and a healthcare professional just can't remember what they had to do to change a setting. Well, the instructions are right on top of the ventilator, from how to turn off the alarms to how to set up the ventilator. We have a QR code that they can scan with their phone, and the instructions are right there. We provide a manual, but no one has time to leaf through things when a patient's on a ventilator, especially. This has become one of the biggest features of our ventilator, and our customers love it because it makes it easy to use. And that's the trainability aspect of it. So when you're talking about lower total cost of ownership, there's a couple pillars in there. So when you talk about no service or maintenance costs, that means you don't have to sign a contract, that you pay for someone to come and fix your ventilator. What did we learn during the pandemic? Hospitals, healthcare institutions were not letting people in the door if you weren't a healthcare provider. So who's going to come fix your ventilator? Well, if we just simply replace it, that means a lot. So we added a 5-year warranty program that we simply replace the ventilator. We don't send a service tech to go fix it. We don't send you parts to your, repair team. We just simply replace the ventilator with a brand new one. That's unheard of, but it's, lessons that we've learned and what healthcare institutions were looking for. And it could be stockpiled. It could be used for daily use, or it could be used for stockpile. What we learned, again, is everyone's renting whatever they could get their hands on. So when you're dealing with distributors or rental companies, you're getting whatever they have available. And they're in various states of repair, or you're not getting the equipment that you need. They're just getting like, hey, I have this model. If you want it, you could take it. And they're charging exorbitant prices. So it takes that variability out of the way for IDNs. And then our training. Our training has proven to be efficient and effective and works, because we've proven this in multiple healthcare facilities throughout the country, and right now throughout the world, that we're able to prove what we said we were going to do. And the fact that it's designed and built in the United States takes away disruption in the supply chain. We're all watching TV and seeing ships out at sea with products that can't make it to the docks. We don't have that problem. So again, plug and play solution. No proprietary disposables. This could work with a low power requirement. So 25 to 30 watts. Every ventilator out there requires a high power supply. We do not, just because of the design and how we designed this ventilator. It's under 12 pounds. Again, typical ventilators are 50 to 100 pounds. No service, maintenance, 5-year warranty, and easy to train on. Now, what I've asked is, one of our customers that we met during the second surge, during the Delta variant, is Jake Parmentier. He's the emergency management program manager out of Mercy. And we had spent a good deal of time working with Jake in the summer of last year, trying to help him solve his problem. So I thought the best way for that to happen is for him to tell you guys his experience and what went into their decision-making process. So Jake, if you're on, yeah. I'm gonna hand you over the mic.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I'll be brief with it too. So yeah, like Jim said, I'm the emergency management program manager for Mercy, and we're one of the largest healthcare systems in the United States that has 40 plus hospitals over the states of Arkansas, Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma. So we serve a wide variety of patients. And what the pandemic did for most of us, for us and for most of the hospitals across the United States, it exacerbated a lot of problems we didn't realize we had before. Thank you. I'll go quick, Keith. Thanks. So we were renting over 100 ventilators at our peak time, which ensued a lot of difficulty with training our travel nurses and our respiratory therapists and so on and so forth. We realized that we didn't really have a standardized fleet that we could easily ship back and forth. So what we did is we decided that we need to revisit building a ventilator fleet for Mercy's health ministry. If you can go to the next slide, Chandler. And so what we did is we had a decision-making process where we built an algorithm that we were looking to seek an efficient, quality, reliable ventilator that was low cost but ICU standard, and comparing that against renting ventilators. And so what Corvent's Respond ventilator provided us was the ability to pull all of this in. And as you see there, we involved a lot of key stakeholders: respiratory therapists, physicians, nursing, supply chain, and accounting. And the biggest factor was we needed to have a ventilator that was quick to be able to train upon and provide proficient providers. And so the Corvent's Respond ventilator did that. It allowed us to have successful clinical outcomes with placing it on patients. Didn't require any service or maintenance costs. We were able to standardize an emergency and non-emergency ventilator fleet that we were quickly and efficiently able to ship across our wide ministry's footprint, all while ensuring that our staff could be trained in due time to provide quick, great quality care for our patients. So I know I'm at the time mark now. So that was really all the components that really helped us decide upon going to core vent respond ventilator, along with, its ability to really prove as a strong critical care ventilator for us in both non-emergent and emergent times.
Thanks, Jake. If you have any questions or if you need to contact us, this is our contact information on this slide. Sorry if we went over, but thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for being here, Jim and Jake. Seeing no questions in the chat and seeing that no one has unmuted their microphone, we'll go ahead and move on to our final presentation of the day with Rave Mobile Safety. Joe, the mic is yours.
All right, cool. If you are not seeing slides yet, let me know.
We see your editing view. Now we see your presentation view. There you go. You're on it.
And now we're good. All right, cool. So I'm going to go over a couple things. For those, I see some names on here, some familiar names that are using Rave already today. So there's a couple things in here that may be news for you, some updates that you should be aware of. But also, if you've heard of us, like me or Dave Walsh over here has called you guys and you're wondering what Rave does, this should answer some of those questions for you. And then if it's been me that's calling you, here's a little bit about me. Been with Rave working in the healthcare emergency management space now for over 5 years. So that's what I do. I work just with healthcare emergency management teams typically in the eastern half of the US. So always enjoy working with emergency management folks in healthcare. It's been an awesome 5 years. And then I'm a father of 2 girls, Lila 2.5, Harper 3 months right there. You can see some bags under our eyes. Harper was the result of a 3:30 in the morning trip to the local hospital here, Milford Regional. We live up in Massachusetts, so New England are here for life. That's where we're also headquartered here at Rave too, just out of the Boston area. So for those that don't know too much about us, we've actually been in the public safety emergency management space for over 16 years, providing solutions to emergency management folks to help them prepare for and manage emergencies and to communicate and coordinate with people, in this case, staff that you need to coordinate with during those emergencies and during drills. The healthcare space where I spend all of my time, there's actually over 300 healthcare systems and organizations using this platform that I'll talk a little bit more about. And we're actually one of 3 vendors in our space certified by Department of Homeland Security on their anti-terrorism technology list. So why is that important in the least? Well, the big component, the most widespread component of our platform is our emergency and mass notification system. The folks that are on the call, I'm going to assume are using something for mass notification, right? I've heard emergency and mass notification systems described by folks with your title as one of their babies, one of the tools that they rely on and need to make sure that it's working and ready to go in case it needs to be activated for any of the various reasons that the tool's in place to help you deal with. And there's some components of our platform that have been developed over time, over the last 16 years that we've been doing this, to help with some other areas of emergency management that I'll touch on here too. But mass communication, emergency notification is kind of like the core of what we do. And I'm going to rely on some videos to help kind of.
When it comes to mass notification, emergency coverage is key. If there's a tornado or a wildfire, active shooter, medical emergency, or local alert, where time is of the essence, getting the right message to the right people at the right time.
Sorry, click the button. Shouldn't have done that. Oh no. That's why you don't click buttons. Let's see if this works.
When it comes to mass notification, emergency coverage is key. If there's a tornado or a wildfire, active shooter, medical emergency, or local alert where time is of the essence, getting the right message to the right people at the right time is critical. But what about the countless events that aren't emergencies at all? What about a parking ban or, I know, a building closure? Yeah, let's say it's final exams, and last night, the chemistry professor missed that one detail while setting up his final exam. You've tired people coming off of all-nighters and about 40 classes whose exam location has to change. And you have to notify these groups immediately, accurately, and in a way that they can't miss it. With Rave Alert, you can fly into your templates, confirm some information, and send. Mission accomplished. Wait, was that too fast? Let's recap. Rave Alert is optimized by any permitted user to send an alert quickly and easily. Out of the gate, that user's message templates are right in front of them. Now, on to save the day. Building closure, there it is. Let's just update the message. The Norton building is closed due to unsafe conditions. All scheduled activities have been moved to the Bain Center. Great, now what modes to send? We need to make sure everyone is going to see this in time, so all modes on. Check. Now, recipients. Let's make sure everyone affiliated with the Norton building gets this message. And for good measure, let's include the Bain Center too. Okay, continue. Everything looks good. It's going to send text, email, voice, social media, all of the push notifications, cap for the digital signs. Check, check, check. Okay. It's ready to go, so I'm going to hit send. And now I can check the report to see how it went. All of those nervous, overtired students and employees, just like you, they got it covered. Want to learn more? Reach out to us today to find out how Rave is the product you buy for an emergency that you wind up using every day.
So more of a higher ed use case, right? But I think you get the idea. You're all probably really familiar with how an emergency notification system works, probably a similar workflow. There's another component to the platform that, or a module that can be leveraged as well for another mode of communication, desktop alerts. In healthcare, right, staff are busy, busier now probably than ever. And so, you know, reaching them on their phone, while it's effective for a lot of staff, sometimes isn't the best way for those time-sensitive scenarios. So a desktop alert can really help to make sure that you're covering all of your bases, again, for those time-sensitive scenarios. So a desktop alerting tool can help with that.
Having the ability to provide critical alerts across all devices is essential. The Rave Notifier for Desktop feature enables organizations to instantly deliver notifications via desktop, in addition to SMS, voice, email, and other modes, and send all notifications through one system. Let's take a look at how simple it is to send a desktop notification with Rave Notifier for Desktop. Here we see the administration console for Rave Alert. To send a desktop notification, we will select one of the templates configured to use desktop notification mode. For our example, we will choose Active Shooter by clicking Send. Here we see the configuration settings for this notification. We will go into these in more detail a bit later. For now, we will assume all configuration parameters to send a desktop notification have been set in advance. We select Continue, review the notification to be sent, and select Send this alert. The desktop message is then displayed with company logo, color branding, as well as date and time stamp. At any time after the notification is sent, we can right-click on the Rave icon in the system tray and select Alert History for information on recent alerts. We can also click on Open Alert Report and the magnifying glass opposite the desktop icon to get more notification details.
Okay, I'm going to ask John Lemansky to re-record that one with a little more zest in his voice. So we'll work on that for next year's presentation. And then, so the last component, or I guess second to last component that I want to at least paint a picture of for everybody is the emergency communications piece of this we covered. There's also some ability to standardize response to certain scenarios that you all are preparing for, right? And that could be something like a power outage, a network outage, or something worse like a bomb threat or an imminent threat to staff safety, whether it's weather related or related to, man-made event. And there's standard responses, SOPs, that are built out in most cases for how we're supposed to respond to that, right? And whether you're a one hospital health system or a multi-hospital health system and trying to standardize, here's what to do when this occurs. We've got an area for you to kind of lay it out beforehand. Here are the tasks that need to be completed when this event occurs. And even a step beyond that, here's the group of people that need to be in charge of managing this event and be provided this list of tasks, the people that need to actually work on these tasks. If you know who they are ahead of time, great. As soon as your event is kicked off in Rave, whether that's by somebody manually kicking it off or one of your templates, your mass notification templates for a power outage, as an example, once that's activated, that can actually kick off these tasks to be assigned to the stakeholders, the folks that need to help you in managing that situation. So instead of continuing to talk about it, we'll show you one more video.
Being able to react to the unknown and think differently when it comes to safety and security is more important now than ever. The Rave Collaborate solution helps you do all you can, regardless of the event type, to prepare for, take action during, and track activities after an incident. Whether a routine situation like a monthly drill or weekly security evaluation, or a more serious event like an active assailant that requires emergency response, there are many key stakeholders involved, critical tasks to carry out, and important decisions to be made. Here, a Rave panic button activation indicating there's an active assailant on campus has triggered an event within Rave Collaborate. This event automates assignment of critical tasks, launches immediate communications such as conference calls, and provides access to pertinent resources for the incident. Let's take a look at the various components of the incident collaboration tool. First, all tasks are oriented for the entirety of the incident, assigned to individuals who will be notified via text and email of their responsibilities. We also have all of our communications templates that are assigned and associated with this particular type of an incident, right at your immediate fingertips to be able to launch additional communications as needed. And resources. Resources could be in the form of informational sharing, like reunification tools or parent reunification plans, or different views into access into different solution capabilities offered within Rave, like the Rave command view and its status check capability, allowing for immediate feedback from field level individuals who are being impacted by a particular incident, allowing for an understanding of what is happening on scene. And lastly, within all incidents, we want to be able to look back and see where we stand within the incident itself, but also over time, be able to provide a certain level of review of the activities, when and by whom they were conducted. Full reporting capabilities are also available. And lastly, important for after action plans is a full detailed report of all activities within a particular event, time-stamped, by whom those activities were impacted, and any notes or information that may have been valuable at the time are available for review. Rave provides a seamless solution to address these needs and to be a partner that allows you to think big.
Okay, we can move on from that. You don't need to hear the last little bit of the sales pitch there. And the last item to kind of bring us home that I think I want to make sure you all are aware of. We don't, the tools that we've made over the last 16 years, the modules that we've built off of this have been there. We're not out there guessing what you guys need. It's based on feedback that we get from you all about what would be helpful based on events that occurred. We're hopefully we're communicating with you and figuring out how we could have been better or what worked. Our events that we host regularly and getting feedback from folks like what we're doing here today. And one of the other components that is useful in the healthcare space is this concept of an employee engagement or an employee safety app that allows you to put some tools into the hands of your staff that they can use to better protect themselves and to better just improve overall campus safety or organizational safety. I won't go through all of them, but a couple of tools that I think I'll highlight are going to be something like an emergency call button or a panic button that would allow a staff member to indicate that they are in distress, whether they're on site and they can notify your on-site safety and security folks, or they're off-site doing something like a home care visit and they need to alert people back at home base that something's going wrong with a patient or a family member of a patient where the staff member feels unsafe. Instant location data from their phone will be shared directly with a central dashboard that in the case of your security department would be up and running and the security teams on their screen in the background somewhere. So when it happens, they can pop right over to that screen and see who the employee is, where they are. There's also a voice-to-voice call placed between the employee's phone and the security desk at that time. There's also a safety timer or a virtual escort tool that's designed to allow employees to proactively, before they go into a situation that could be deemed unsafe for one reason or another, allows them to kind of say, hey, over the next, whatever it is, 15 minutes, I'd like to have, the security department watch over me. So if they're walking to their car on their own late at night, like a lot of healthcare staff have to do, they've got the ability to activate this beforehand. And essentially what happens is if they don't check in when they say that they should, a notification will go to the right folks within your organization to let you know to check on them. So you'll know who they are, the staff member, and you'll know, again, GPS from their phone of where they are. So you can dispatch your own resources if that's appropriate to try and go and check on them, or even try and reach the staff member directly with the information in their profile, their cell phone number, et cetera. And anonymous tips or text with security, two ways of describing the same tool, which is a tool that allows employees to submit information into you all if they see something that's worth reporting. So that could be a bag left unattended in a walkway or an entry point, or a suspicious person walking around campus that they want to let you know about. That can even open up a two-way text chat. So if your security team is kind of triaging these reports, they can actually write back to the staff member and ask them, for example, for a picture of that bag that they are reporting to be left unattended. So that's it. I'll wrap up there. And if there's any questions, answer them. Otherwise, I'll give it back to the AHEP team.
All right, thank you, Joe. If we have any questions for Joe, please feel free to unmute your mic at this time. Go ahead and ask your question. And seeing no one unmuting, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up the webinar. Thank you all so much for being here today. And thank you to all of our sponsors of the conference, Datamiter, Paladin, Critical Insight, Juveri, Corvent Medical, and Rave Mobile Safety. Thank you for taking time out of your day to talk to our members about your company and your services. And thank you again for your continued support of AHEP. With that, everyone have a good day.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
Info.